So, Matt, great to have you. So, you're the creator of Simpsons,
Yes.
right? But you're also famous for other creations as well, which none of us really know too much about. So, tell us about
Well,
that.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not famous for other creations. I'm famous for The Simpsons, but yes, I'm a cartoonist. I'm a print cartoonist. I started out as a cartoonist, and I continue to be. I'm not an animator. I'm actually just a cartoonist. That means I get to work with people who actually know how to draw and make characters move. But in addition to The Simpsons, I do a comic strip called Life in Hell. It's a weekly comic strip. I've been drawing it for 30 years now.
Wow.
And
That's what actually led you to Simpsons, is that right?
yes, yes, I started it when I moved to Los Angeles. I had a terrible series of jobs. I worked in a little copy place and Xeroxed my comics and hand stapled them and gave them out at parties. And it was not a good business model.
So, go back in life and tell us about the early stage. I mean, so what do you study and what do you do right after your education? Walk us through that early life.
I grew up on the west coast of the United States, in Oregon, Portland, Oregon, the biggest city in that state. My father, Homer, the original, was a cartoonist and filmmaker himself. So a lot of my personality and outlook on life is inherited from my father. He loved the outdoors, and he loved animation too, but he always thought it was too hard. Because I said, Dad, because he made films. He made short films that were about surfing and skiing and things like that. And I always said, Dad, you love animation so much, why don't you get into animation? It was too hard. You got to get other people to do the work. I don't like to work with other people. And I thought, I will be different. I will not be like my dad. I will work with other people.
And so, what did you get started off with, and how did you get started off with drawing and with cartoons and strips?
Well, I was bored in school, so the entire time that I was supposed to be paying attention in class, I was drawing.
You're
I can
doodling
remember.
around.
I can remember the very first day of school, being bored and drawing, and that's the only way I could keep from going crazy. And I got very good so that I could actually draw without looking.
Okay.
At what I was doing. In fact, that's one reason my drawing style is so loose, is because it's based on trying to keep my eye on the teacher while still drawing.
And when was your first break?
My first break. It's my first break. Well, it depends on how you look. I guess in school, I guess I got to work on the college my high school newspaper, and then in my college newspaper. And I went to a college near Seattle called the Evergreen State College. It was an experimental college, only hippies and, well, the people who didn't like it said the college was populated by hippies, poets, and revolutionaries. And I thought, that's the school for me. So I got to work on the school newspaper with a bunch of like-minded, crazy cartoonists and writers and photographers, and that was my first break, because we got to do whatever we wanted to do. I've never taken a class in journalism, and I got to be the editor of the newspaper. So that was my first break.
Awesome. And Life in Hell, how did that get started?
Life in Hell came about from having grown up in the beautiful Pacific Northwest, full of fir trees and salmon leaping out of the rivers, and the ground was so wet. The ground is so wet where I grew up that when you fall down, you bounce because it's very spongy. And so I moved to Los Angeles, which is very dry. And in fact, for me, almost the rest of the world feels very much like a desert after having grown up where I grew up. Very wet, very rainy. And Los Angeles was hot, dry, dusty, polluted, and expensive. And I had no money. So it was hellish. So I started drawing a little comic strip called Life in Hell. And that's where it began.
And people really liked the Life in Hell strip, and someone
Well-
approached you for The Simpsons. So talk us up about that. Both.
Well, there's a little leap there. People like, the comic strip. I did Little Xerox Comics, and then it was published in a newspaper as a weekly comic strip called the Los Angeles Reader, and it was okay. It was okay. My big break came during that era in my life was when I was able to do my first cartoon book, self-published. I did a book called Love is Hell and a book called Work is Hell. That was in 1984, 1985. And then they got picked up by Real Publisher in New York and got distributed, and that's when things started to turn around.
Right, that's the big break.
Yeah.
Right? And so in Simpsons, so there's one question from one of the readers saying that it's very cynical, right? Most of the characters,
I would say
very
I don't know
mediocre.
if cynical. I don't know if cynical. I mean, that's definitely an element of cynicism in the show, but it's more just anti-sentimental. I think there's so much in animation is so corny and sentimental, and you're so used to it because that's from Walt Disney cartoons, which are brilliant and wonderful in their own way, but very sentimental. And and the other thing is, on television, before The Simpsons, in general, there are a few exceptions, but in general, cartoons were aimed only at children.
Okay.
There were no adult cartoons. And The Simpsons came along, and we said, this is a show for adults. And we knew kids would tune in anyway, but we were very unsure whether adults would. And so we lucked out. It was an experiment that worked.
And there's tiny little stories about how the characters were named. You want to talk about that?
Yes. Well, at the very, very beginning of the creation of The Simpsons, I named the characters after my own family. They're not really like my family, but I do have a father named Homer. I have a sister.
Real father named Homer.
Real father named Homer. And I have a sister Lisa. I have a sister Maggie, so I named characters after them. And my mother is named Margaret. I thought Marge was a slightly funnier name, but it's very close. And I just named characters in a way to honor my family. And the sort of the psychodynamic of growing up in the Groening family. There's something strange about having created this TV show that has become this huge collaborative effort of hundreds of people. And they still have the same names, even though the characters are really nothing like my real family. My family takes it in stride that they are now the namesakes of these famous characters. Like, it makes sense in my family. If you know my family, they go, yeah, that makes sense that we're famous cartoon characters.
And it's the world's longest running animated series, right?
That sounds right. I'm not sure, but yeah, that sounds right.
Awesome.